everyone, my name is Lori, my nickname is Rainy, and I'd like to welcome you to Rainy Bobini Creations. If you're new to my channel and this is the first time you've popped by, thank you so much. I hope you like what you see. If you do, please consider subscribing, hit that thumbs up button, and share with your friends. If you're back, thank you so much for coming back to me. Totally appreciate you coming, and again, if you like it, please hit that thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. So for today's craft, it's really easy, super inexpensive. In fact, you probably have most of the things already in your stash, and it is so cute when it's done. I was so pleased with the outcome. So I really hope you like it. We're going to do 3 stand-up bunnies for the Easter season, and they could stay right into spring. So let's stop yakking at you and let's jump into the craft. So for today's craft, we are going to do some stand-up bunnies. Now you can go to the Dollar Tree, whatever, and find the wooden ones. I went there, but I couldn't find any in the sizes I wanted, or even the shapes actually, so maybe I waited too long. But so all I did was I went onto Pinterest. I found some bunny silhouettes that I was looking for in the shapes and sizes I wanted. So I just got a couple of them here. And then I just printed them out, traced them onto cardboard, and this is what I was left with. So these 3 different shapes here. So we're going to need those. You're going to need some white paint, and of course you can do whatever colors and whatever you want, but I'm going with some white paint just as a base. We'll need some Mod Podge, because I am going to, after I base coated them, I've got 3 different sort of fabrics. So I'm going with some burlap. I've got this sort of buffalo check napkin, and then I just had this fabric that was in my stash that I thought would work well. So I'm going to use those 3. Again, use whatever you like. Now the reason I am going to do the base coat is, as you can sort of see, I want that to show through my burlap. I don't want it just to be the cardboard. And also with the tissue, or with the napkin, I'm afraid the white, when you Mod Podge it on, it won't look as white, it'll go brown like the cardboard. So that's why I'm doing it. So you can skip that step, especially if you do find the wood ones. But I'm going to base coat them, as I said, with the white, and I am going to do both sides just because where I'm wanting them to sit, you may be able to see the back sometimes. So I'm going to paint both sides. Then you're going to need some twine. Now you can use, I'm going to make some pom-poms, so I've got the white wool. You can pick up pom-poms from the Dollar Tree, whatever. I couldn't find any that I kind of thought were fluffy and big enough, so I had this in my stash already, so I'm going to make some. And then I didn't pull them out yet, but I'm probably going to use maybe some buttons or something else, just some little embellishments to go with them. The other thing that you will need is, if you want them to stand like I'm going to do, is you're going to need some Jenga blocks just to help them stand up on their own. So to get started, of course you'll need your glue gun and your scissors and all that usual stuff, paintbrushes for the Mod Podge. But to get started, I'm just going to give each bunny, like I said, a coat of the white paint. So okay, so sorry, I forgot to grab my brush before I was doing this. So again, I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm just using a plain white, mine's Apple Barrel from the Walmart, just plain old acrylic paint. And because we are going to be Mod Podging over top, I'm going to give it at least 1 coat. If it still looks really sparse, I might give it 2. 1 might do it for our purposes. And like I said, I'm going to do the front and back. If you are putting it somewhere where the back's not going to be seen, maybe you don't have to worry about it. But just for my purposes and where it's going in my home, I am going to do both sides. Now don't worry about the edges. because we are going to cover them up when we're done anyway. So you want to get to the edges, but you don't have to worry about covering up those edges because, like I said, if you're using the cardboard like I am, we're going to cover that up at the end anyway. So let me go ahead and get all 3 of these coated in paint and let them dry really well, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so we got the pet bunnies. I got all 3 of them painted on both sides now. So now comes for the Mod Podge part. So it just, when it comes to the napkins, you'll notice that they have, some are 2 and some are 3 ply. So you want to get it down to the 1, which sometimes is a bit frustrating to get it to come apart. So, as I was saying, it is a bit frustrating trying to get them to come apart, but eventually, there we go. So you're just going to pull them apart. Now, because I'm a little bit cheap and I like to reuse everything and not throw anything out that I can find a use for, I always keep these just as blotters or to dry my brushes off or whatever, but we don't need this part for this. And then I'm going to cover my bunny, but I'm going to leave some excess. So when you Mod Podge, and this will be true for whether you're doing the napkins or fabric or the burlap, you're going to do it all the same way. We'll put on a coat of Mod Podge on the bottom. Oh, see, that blotting thing's coming in handy right now because I left my other one. So we're going to give it a good coat of Mod Podge. And we're going to do it all the same way for all 3 of the bunnies. It doesn't matter what you're putting down, whether you're using the fabric, like I said, or the burlap, or napkins. And the napkins are the only ones that are going to be a little bit finicky because they can tear, so you do need to be a little bit careful with them. So once we've got a good coat of Mod Podge, make sure you get all the edges. We're going to place it over top. Now I'm not going to cut it out because the way I have found to get the best and cleanest cuts is to Mod Podge it on there, let it dry, and then take your X-Acto knife or box cutter or whatever to get your clean edge. So because that's how I'm going to do it, when I'm painting my Mod Podge on, I'm going to go a little bit over the edges, and that will stiffen it up so we get that nice clean cut. If you don't go over the edges, and just a little bit, not much, what tends to happen is it will tear. Now you'll see as I'm doing this, because it's napkin, the moisture tends to want to wrinkle. Don't worry too much about that wrinkling because, one, as it dries, it tends to flatten out pretty well. And if you fight with it too much, there's a bigger chance you're going to end up tearing your napkin. And being that it is a little bit, we're going for kind of a rustic farmhouse look, a little bit of wrinkle in there is just going to add some character to it. And if there's any really awful spots, hide them with a bow. It'll be fine. But yeah, you don't want to go over especially like I said, the napkin too many times and fight too much with those wrinkles, or you're going to end up tearing it. And that's just, a pain in the butt. So I'm going to go and do exactly the same thing for all 3. Once they're good and dry, we'll come back to the next step. Okay, so we've got all 3 of our bunnies all Mod Podged with our different fabrics and napkins and things. So course the next step here is to just use your blade here and just cut around them. I find that gives you the nicest, cleanest edge, rather than, like I said, cutting it out ahead of time and then trying to get a perfect match and doing it on that way. So I've always found this works a little bit better. So just using your bunny as your guide, you're just going to go around, all the way around. And you're going to do that, of course, for all 3 bunnies. Apparently my blade's a little bit dull. Here's all 3 of our bunnies cut out. So now the next thing I'm going to do, and again this is completely optional, I just want to distress mine around the edges a little bit. They're a bit too clean for this country look I'm going for. So I'm going to use my burnt umber, and I've got this old raggedy brush that I saved just for this purpose. You can see it's really old, it's very stiff and beat up, but it's perfect for this application. So I'm just going to put a little bit on my brush, wipe most of it off, and then I'm just going to go around the edges. You can do as much or as little as you want. I know you can use distressing ink. I don't have any, and this has always worked really well for me, so I haven't worried about it. You can certainly do that too. I'm just going to go all the way around the bunnies on all 3 of them. So we'll do this for all 3 bunnies, and then we'll move on to the next step. You can see where my blade wasn't very good on this one, and it's a bit raggedy, but I'll clean that up. And you can see it takes almost like very little paint to do this, so you don't want to load your brush. You want most of the paint off. Just give it that edging. And if you want it a little more dramatic, use a little bit more. If you want a little bit less, just do a little bit less. And so that's the look you've got when you're done. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to all 3 of them, and I'll be back with the next step. Okay, so there's all our bunnies. They've mud podged, distressed, looking pretty good. Now just to finish this part of it off, if you've done the wood ones, you can skip this if you want to. I actually like the look, so I'd probably do it either way. What I'm going to do, partly to hide the edge and partly just because I like the look, is I'm going to edge them in our twine. So now this twine, you know the big rolls you can get at the Dollarama, they tend to be a little bit thinner and they don't give me a really good coverage along the edge. So I went with this one. It's, I guess, somewhere between the nautical and just the regular old jute twine. It's right in between that size. So I'm going to use this one to edge all of my bunnies, and that will hide the edge and just outline them, and I really like the look of it. So nothing fancy with this, just using our hot glue gun. Just going to start at a spot that's not going to be too conspicuous to start and stop at. And we're just going to go around the whole thing for all 3 bunnies. Alright, so we've got all the twine around all of the edges of our bunnies. So now we need to give them their fluffy tails. Now you can get pom-poms at the Dollarama. I wanted them to be fluffier than the ones I could find there, so I'm gonna make my own. If you've never made a pom-pom, it's super easy, and I'll show you how if I can find the end of my wool here. There it is. So you're going to just wrap it around your fingers, and I don't know, I just go until it's about as thick as I think I'm gonna want it. So you're just gonna wrap it, and you can always trim them down, so if they're a bit too big, it's not a big deal. So you can see I'm just wrapping and wrapping, and I'm just gonna keep going till I think it's gonna be full enough for what I'm looking for. Well, I'm thinking that should probably do it. I'm just gonna pull it off of your fingers. Trim my wool. Then I'm gonna cut another piece and tie it around the middle. Now you want this to be tied really tight. So I usually tie it once this way, as tight as I can. I flip it over and tie it on the other side, and I do a double knot on this side, just to make sure it's not going to come loose, and I'm going to lose my fluff when I trim it. As tight as you can, just to keep them in place. So then you should end up with something that looks like that. So now we're just going to go in with our scissors and cut all of our loops, and that will give you your pom-pom. Just cut all the loops. Like I said, if it ends up being bigger than you wanted, you can always trim it down a bit. I always end up trimming it a little bit anyway, just to make it even. This is the same, similar procedure if you ever want to make a tassel too. You just don't cut one side, or and you make one side longer than the other usually. So now we've got this, and just a couple. Let's cut. All right, so I'll just fluff it. Move these guys out of the way so it doesn't stick. So then I'm just going to trim it to what I want. So it's fluffy and full, but a little bit more even. I'm just going to trim them down just like you're giving them a haircut. Make a tail there. I'm just going to puff him. Now, if I was doing, like, I'm going to be gluing him down so I can have all the fluff at the top. If I was going to be doing just a pom-pom, I would probably have made it a bit fuller, but for this, because the back is going to be flat, I can pull all the fluff to the front, and it's going to work just perfect for us. Again, I'm just going to pull them all together like that before we glue them on. Then you can see I just need a few trims here and there, just to make them a little more even. And then we're simply going to glue them on our bunny. Just a good little dot of hot glue. Find the center. Get set up there for a minute. And there's our bunny tail. So I did go ahead and do the other two ahead of time. Let's get that out of the way. So I'm going to give them all three, are going to get their fluffy tails. And our last one here. I'm giving them quite a dollop just to make sure they stay put. Almost done here, so now I just want to give them a little something, a little bow or a little embellishment. So I think I'm going to use twine for this. Oh, one moment. Okay, so for the finishing touches, I'm just going to make a twine bow. I'm just doing nothing fancy, just a shoelace bow with our twine. Pull it tight here. Trim off my tail. I'll figure out how small I want my tail when it's on there. Yep, can go. I think I'm gonna put him there. Just adding a bit of hot glue. Actually, I like the other side better. Attach our bow to our bunny. And then just as a bit of a finishing touch on it, I thought I would use my buttons just to add a little extra. So again, just a little hot glue. And I'll do that for all 3 bunnies, just deciding where I want my bows to go here. Okay, nothing fancy, just shoelace bow. And of course you could use ribbon if you wanted to. Make a burlap bow. I saw the burlap would be too big for these. Drop his tail. He can go in there, and I think I'll do the other one around his ears. I started it on the wrong end, as you can see, and it's made it a bit of an annoyance, I'll tell you. Can never find the end of it. Still can't. Here, oh, there it is. In my stash, have probably been here forever. So now all that's left to do, now if you're going to hang them, you can just use a twine. You can glue some twine to the back. As I said, I do want mine to stand, so I am just going to glue my jangle blocks right to the back so they'll stand up. And that's all we need to do to finish this little Easter bunny rusticy decor piece. I'm trying to be too fast. I gotta let it dry better. Oh, we might need 2 jangle blocks on him. I wondered if we would, because he's got a bit of a rounded bottom, this guy. There we go. And we'll do this, of course, for all 3 of them. And our last little guy. So we are all done, our little bunny decor. I will show you the final product all set up here in a few minutes.